لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك.
Yusra, we need some cushions from the loft for the guests. Could you go up and bring some down for me, please?
Sure, no problem, Mom. Cool. I've been wanting to go and check it out up there for a while now. Wow, what's that? Wow!
You are about to be taken.
What was that? Actually, what was that?
You are about to be taken on a journey to a special place. A place where thousands upon thousands have been gathering together year after year. A place where people come together to worship the one true God.
What is that building?
This building is no ordinary building. This is the first house built for the worship of God the Almighty and is known to you and I as the Kaaba.
I wonder why people come to this special place.
There are many reasons for why people come to this special place. The most important of all of these is to constantly remember and worship God the Almighty. Through worshipping God, Muslims try their best to become better people, which is also one of the main purposes of Hajj, the pilgrimage to the first house of God.
Hajj! That's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. But what is Hajj and why is it so special for Muslims?
The word Hajj means pilgrimage. All Muslims will try their best to make this pilgrimage at least once in their lifetime, if it is physically and financially possible, and also if the journey is safe. It is a time when Muslims, men and women from all over the world, gather together at one place for one purpose, and that is to remember and worship their Creator, God the Almighty. One of the first places that the pilgrims go to on Hajj is the Kaaba. It is in the direction of the Kaaba that Muslims face towards when they are praying. What a special building it is!
This is the building we face towards when we are praying. It's so beautiful. So I wonder what happens at Hajj.
All those that take this special journey to Hajj first must make the intention to do so. The combined action of the intention to perform Hajj along with the talbiyah, which is the prayer you can hear in the background, is known as ihram.
والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك.
But for those that don't understand the Arabic language, what does this prayer actually mean? The translation of this beautiful prayer should help you understand. Here we come, O God, here we come. No partner have you, here we come. Indeed, praise and blessings are yours, and the kingdom too. No partner have you.
الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك.
I suppose people read other prayers too, because we learn lots of prayers. I suppose we can read them also.
ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا.
During Hajj, men must cover their upper and lower body with 2 simple sheets of white cloth. This is also known as ihram. You might be wondering what ladies have to wear at Hajj. Well, women are supposed to wear their normal clean clothes. It was a practice since the time of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that pilgrims have put on their ihram clothing before entering Mecca. And would you believe that this practice still exists today?
Wow! So people still do things in the same way as they did at the time of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, all those years ago. That's pretty cool.
The pilgrims wear these 2 simple sheets of white cloth to remind themselves that everyone, absolutely everyone, is equal in the sight of the one that really matters, and that is God the Almighty. Everyone is equal in God's eyes, regardless of their status in life, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of where they come from. The pilgrims enter Mecca to perform the first tawaf or circuit around the Kaaba. The tawaf is complete when the pilgrim has been around the Kaaba 7 times in an anti-clockwise direction, whilst at all times reciting the talbiyah, many other prayers, and thinking about why they are there. Once the pilgrims have been around the Kaaba 7 times, that's the first tawaf now completed.
I've seen people going around the Kaaba like that in books also. So that's also done at Hajj. I wonder what happens after the pilgrims have done the tawaf.
2 rak'ahs of prayer are then performed. The pilgrims will then perform the sa'i. This doesn't have to be done at this stage of the Hajj. It can actually be done towards the end of the Hajj also. The sa'i is when the pilgrims walk between 2 hillocks or small mountains of Safa and Marwa, which are located very close to the Kaaba. Safa is situated to the south of the Kaaba and Marwa to the north of the Kaaba.
Okay, that's a bit confusing. Hillocks are supposed to be little mountains, but it kind of looks like a tunnel.
The area between Safa and Marwa used to be extremely hilly and was quite difficult for the pilgrims to walk on. It used to cause many injuries and painful aches. So, in order to ease the pain for the pilgrims, over the years, the area has been covered with marble and a wide air-conditioned covered area has been created.
Ah, so that's why it looks like a tunnel. So this area didn't actually used to look like this before.
Whilst the pilgrims are performing the sa'i, they are mindful of the time when Prophet Abraham left his wife Hagar and their baby Ishmael close to where Safa and Marwa are located. In those days, the structure of the Kaaba had not yet been rebuilt. There was nothing around this area. No houses, no people, no food, no water. There was absolutely nothing. Why would someone do such a thing? Well, Prophet Abraham left them there with only a few dates and some water, because God had told him to do so. He knew that he was leaving them in a place where there was nothing at all, but he did so only because he had full trust in God the Almighty. After a few days, Ishmael, who was just a baby, began to cry when the water had run out, for he was becoming very thirsty. His mother Hagar began to run between the hills of Safa and Marwa, desperately searching for water. Ishmael was lying on the floor, and as babies do, he was kicking his heels on the ground whilst crying. He began to cry more and more as he became even thirstier. Now would you believe that with this baby's kicking, water began to come out of the ground? His mother quickly made a circle around it to stop the water from escaping, and was able to give the water to her crying baby. This water flow was actually a well that had been hidden at the time. It is with the kicking of the heels of baby Ishmael that this well became visible once again. This well still exists today and is known as Zamzam.
Ah, so that's probably why people bring back water from Mecca and say it's from Abi Zamzam. So it still exists after all these years.
It is because of this well that people then began to move into this area. It so happens, many years later, that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, was born and lived for a part of his life so very close to where the Kaaba itself stands. After the Sa'i is completed, the pilgrims then move about 4.5 kilometers away from Mecca to a place called Mina. The pilgrims spend the day and night here and remain in a constant state of prayer. The next morning, after Fajr prayers, the pilgrims leave for Arafat. Here the pilgrims observe Zohar and Asr prayers, and a sermon is delivered by the Imam. It was here that the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, delivered his farewell sermon, in which many a great thing are mentioned. On the same day, the pilgrims then move to Muzdalifah in the evening time. Many of the pilgrims choose to collect pebbles from Muzdalifah, which will be used during Hajj at a later time. The pilgrims spend the night in Muzdalifah, constantly praying and remembering God the Almighty. The night is spent without any shelter, out in the open, under the sky, stars, and the moon. The following day, after Fajr prayers, the pilgrims move back to Mina. Here, 7 of the pebbles that they collected earlier are thrown at the largest of 3 stone structures which represent Satan. This is done to symbolically say that they reject Satan and do not want Satan to be a part of their life. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever. After this, the pilgrims sacrifice an animal, which is done in memory of the great sacrifice that Prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael were prepared to make. In a dream, Prophet Abraham saw himself sacrificing his son Ishmael. Believing this to be the will of God, Prophet Abraham explained his dream to Ishmael. Ishmael, who was just a child at the time, without any hesitation, agreed to what was being asked of him. Just as Prophet Abraham was about to slaughter his son Ishmael, God commanded him to stop and told him to sacrifice an animal instead. The day of Hajj on which the sacrifice of an animal is made is the day of Eid al-Adha, which is celebrated all over the world by Muslims. At the festival of Eid al-Adha, Muslims slaughter animals in the remembrance of this great sacrifice that both Prophet Abraham and Ishmael were prepared to make. And by doing so, Muslims are symbolically committing themselves to be ready for any type of sacrifice for the will of God the Almighty.
Ah, so this is Eid Day.
After the sacrifice of the animal has been made, male pilgrims will shave their head or shorten their hair, which is symbolic of the sin-free nature and pureness of a newborn child. Women will also cut a snippet of their hair. At this point, the pilgrims now change out of their ihram clothing into their everyday clothes. Now, in their normal clothes, the pilgrims go back to Mecca to perform another tawaf of the Kaaba, known as Tawaf-e-Ziyara. The same night, the pilgrims then return to Mina, where they will stay for either 2 or 3 days. Here, they will be throwing the remainder of their pebbles. The pilgrims throw 7 pebbles each at each one of the 3 satans on a daily basis for the 2 or 3 days that they have chosen to stay here for. With this part of the Hajj now completed, the pilgrims have come to the end of their special journey, which you too are now familiar with.
Wow, that was amazing.
Yusra, what's taking you so long?
Huh?
Yusra, where are you?
I'm just coming.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك